Forgotten myths in the endless dark of space, every world carried its own legends. Some spoke about gods who lived in the stars, others about demons who destroyed whole planets. But there was one legend that was feared more than all the rest. It was the story of a race called humans. No one had ever seen them. No one alive could prove they were real. Yet for centuries, whispers about them moved through the galaxy like a cold wind. They were described as warriors who fought until the very last breath, beings who could turn entire wars in their favor by will alone. Some said humans were made of fire and iron. Others said they were shadows that walked in flesh. Most believed these stories were only myths. To many alien scholars, humans were nothing more than tales told to frighten younglings or to warn commanders not to grow overconfident. They said the humans once lived on a small blue world called Earth, but that world had been destroyed long ago. The location was lost, the records broken, and the proof erased by time. Among the stars, however, fear has a long memory. Even without proof, the idea of humans survived. In war councils of great empires, when fleets gathered to prepare for battle, there were always a few who whispered, "What if the humans return?" The younger generations laughed at the idea. They said, "If humans ever existed, they are long dead. Their bones are dust. Their ships are rust." But the elders, the ones who had studied the oldest archives, did not laugh. Their eyes carried a shadow when the word human was spoken. They remembered the fragments of records that spoke, of entire fleets burned in silence, of empires collapsing within days, of soldiers who swore they saw eyes staring at them through fire and void. On the far edge of the galaxy, an exploration crew searched the ruins of a dead system. It was nothing more than drifting rocks and broken moons. The sun had died thousands of years ago, leaving behind a cold, black corpse. Most saw nothing but waste and emptiness, but the explorers' scanners caught something strange. A signal. At first they thought it was a mistake, an echo of their own machines. But the signal repeated, slow and steady, like a heartbeat buried deep in stone. It was weak, so faint that only the most advanced sensors could catch it. Captain Reinel, leader of the crew, ordered his ship closer. His team moved through the broken remains of the system until they found it. An ancient station half buried in the shadow of an asteroid. It was cracked, scarred by time, yet something within it still lived. When they boarded the station, the halls were silent. Dust floated like ash in the stale air. The walls were covered with strange markings, symbols no one recognized. But deep inside, past countless doors and ruined chambers, they reached a sealed room. Inside the room lay a single object, a black cube that hummed with hidden power. The cube was not alien to them. They had seen fragments of such things in forgotten museums and old records, but never whole, never alive. The scholars gasped. One of them whispered in disbelief, "This is human technology." The room grew colder. Even the most logical minds felt a wave of unease. If this object was truly human, it should not exist. Humans were gone. Humans were only a story. Captain Reinel touched the cube. At once, it lit up, glowing with soft blue light. A voice, ancient and broken, filled the room. "Earth remembers." The crew froze. The voice was not in any alien language, yet somehow each of them understood it. The words carried weight, like the echo of a storm. Suddenly, the cube projected images into the air. The explorers saw ships unlike anything they had ever known. Colossal war machines with black hulls and glowing engines, fleets that moved like living beasts. They saw soldiers standing tall, their faces hard and unyielding. They saw a world of oceans and green lands filled with fire and war, but also filled with strength. The last image was of the sky darkening as thousands of ships rose above a blue planet. Then the cube went silent. The light faded. The crew stared at each other, their hearts heavy with dread. The scholars whispered again, this time with trembling voices. The legends. They were true. The news spread quickly. Across the stars, whispers became storms. Some empires dismissed it as a trick, a machine left behind by some forgotten race. Others took it seriously. Commanders began to strengthen their fleets. Rulers tightened their borders. Fear began to grow in places where no fear had been before. But in the darkness of deep space, far from the explorers and far from the empires, something began to stir. The signal that had slept for thousands of years was no longer hidden. It reached across the galaxy like a call waiting for an answer, and somewhere, in the silence between stars, something answered. It was not the voice of aliens. It was not the voice of gods or demons. It was the voice of a people who had been silent for too long. The humans. They were not gone. They had never truly disappeared. They had waited, hidden in the shadows of forgotten systems, building, preparing, remembering. And now, with the signal awake, the galaxy would learn a truth it had long denied. Humans were not myths. They were real. And they were coming back. The first sight, the discovery of the Black Cube, did not remain secret for long. Every empire, every council, every wandering trader soon heard whispers of it. Some mocked the story, calling it a desperate attempt by explorers to gain fame. Others, the older and more careful rulers, felt a chill they had not felt in centuries. They remembered the word human like a wound that had never fully healed. But the galaxy moved on. Fleets patrolled their borders. Trade ships carried goods between stars. Life, as always, seemed too large to be shaken by a single myth, until another signal appeared. This one was not faint. It was strong, sharp, and alive. It pulsed across multiple star systems like a beating heart, refusing to be ignored. The signal carried no words, only a code, one that no alien could break. But deep within the code, there was a rhythm, almost like a march. The explorers who first detected it followed the trail into a region of space long thought to be dead. The system had no light, its star collapsed into a black husk. The planets were shattered, drifting like broken teeth. Nothing should have lived there. Yet something was hidden. The lead ship, a cruiser from the Varan Dominion, was the first to see it. At first the scanners showed nothing but dust and rock. Then, slowly, the shadows began to move. A structure appeared from the darkness. It was vast, so vast that the cruiser's computers struggled to measure it. What they thought was a fragment of a moon revealed itself to be a massive station. Its design was alien to every known culture. Jagged edges and smooth curves blended in strange harmony, like a predator's body frozen in metal. And around it, ships. Hundreds, maybe thousands. They were silent, their hulls dark, their engines cold. They drifted in perfect formation, as if waiting for a signal. The alien crew whispered in disbelief. Impossible. These ships are not on record. No one builds like this. The ships were colossal. Their hulls were black as void, swallowing the light of distant stars. Some were shaped like blades, others like wings folded against their bodies. But all of them carried an aura of power, as if they were not machines, but beasts asleep in the dark. The Varan commander, Admiral Threx, gave the order to scan them. The results froze every officer in the chamber. The energy readings were unlike anything they had ever recorded. The ships were not dead. They were sleeping. And then, as if hearing the alien presence, one of the ships stirred. Its engines lit up with a deep red glow, casting shadows across the void. The sudden light revealed its full size, a leviathan of steel, large enough to swallow entire fleets. The alien crew panicked. Weapons were armed, alarms screamed through the ship. But before they could even act, a voice filled their minds. It was not through speakers. It was not through translators. It was direct, raw, and ancient. You should not have come here. The crew froze. Their blood ran cold. The massive ship turned slowly, its weapon systems humming to life. The aliens knew what they were seeing, even if they refused to believe it. The hull markings were strange but familiar, matching the symbols found on the Black Cube. It was human. Admiral Threx whispered, almost against his will. The legends, they live. Without warning, the ship released a single pulse of energy, not an attack but a signal. At once the silent fleet awakened. One by one, the dark ships lit their engines. Thousands of red glows filled the void, like an army of suns being born. The alien cruiser, once proud and fearless, now felt like a fragile insect in front of a storm. The human fleet stretched across the system, their black hulls eclipsing the stars. And still they said nothing. No demand. No threat, no war cry. Only silence broken by the hum of their awakening. The alien officers begged their admiral to retreat. Admiral Threx hesitated, his pride fighting his fear. But when the human ship's weapons locked onto them, he knew choice was gone. "Fall back," he ordered. His voice trembled. "Fall back now." The cruiser turned and fled, engines screaming as it raced into the safety of open space. Behind them, the human fleet did not pursue. They simply watched. Thousands of eyes of metal burning in the dark, following the fleeing ship until it disappeared into hyperspace. Word of this sighting spread faster than fire. The galaxy shook with terror. For the first time in living memory, the humans were not whispers. They were not shadows. They were real. In the great halls of the Zethon Empire, the Empress demanded answers. In the cold towers of the Koro Alliance, priests prayed to their gods for protection. Even the mighty warlords of the Dominion, who feared nothing, held meetings deep into the night. What did the humans want? Why had they revealed themselves now? And most of all, where had they been all this time? But no one had the answers. The only truth was this. The skies had darkened, and the galaxy would never be the same again. And somewhere, hidden within that fleet, unseen by alien eyes, a voice whispered to its people, "It begins." Shadows in the sky. The news of the awakening fleet spread like wildfire. At first, many rulers dismissed it as rumor, the usual exaggeration of frightened explorers. But the reports kept coming. Different fleets, different systems, different scouts, all told the same story. They had seen them. Dark ships moving silently through the void, black as night, larger than anything the galaxy had ever built. They did not attack. They did not speak. They only appeared, watched, and then vanished back into the shadows. To some, this silence was more terrifying than war. Armies could be fought, threats could be answered. But shadows in the sky, shadows that needed no words, were a nightmare that no one could control. In the capital of the Dral Confederacy, the High Council held emergency sessions day and night. Their scientists studied the signal left by the awakening fleet. Their generals demanded larger armies. Their merchants whispered that war would end all trade. Yet through every hall and chamber, one word haunted every conversation. Humans. The Koro Alliance priests declared it a curse from the ancient stars. They claimed humans were not mortal beings, but punishers sent by the void itself. In their temples, they lit endless fires to keep the shadows away. Though none truly believed fire could stop the return of legends, the mighty Zethon Empire, proud of its countless victories, refused to show fear. The Empress herself stood before her commanders and said, "If these humans wish to walk in our skies, we will burn them from the stars." But behind her strong words, her eyes betrayed doubt. She had read the oldest records, the same ones every elder feared to speak about, and the Dominion. The Dominion had already seen the fleet. Admiral Threx's report was sealed, but the faces of his surviving crew told the truth without words. They had seen something that broke the pride of soldiers who feared nothing. For the first time in generations, the galaxy's strongest powers agreed on one thing. The humans were real, yet the mystery only deepened. The human ships did not invade. They did not strike borders or demand tribute. They simply appeared above strange worlds, silent and unyielding, their shadows stretching across the skies of alien cities. People on the ground would look up and see them, colossal black forms blotting out the stars. And then, as suddenly as they came, they would vanish. No trace, no signal, only fear left behind. On the world of Yoran Prime, children stopped playing outside at night. They said the ships were watching them. On the colonies of Niru Belt, workers refused to enter the mines, claiming they saw shadows moving in the dark tunnels that had no source. In every corner of the galaxy, paranoia grew. Every shadow became a human ship. Every silence became a warning. The scholars tried to study the few recordings of the fleet, but every time the results were the same. The ships were impossible to track. Their engines defied known science. Their hulls swallowed every scan, leaving only static. One scholar wrote, "We do not study them. They study us." For the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt small. The empires that once believed themselves untouchable now built walls of fleets around their worlds. But deep down, every soldier, every ruler, every citizen knew the truth. No wall could stop shadows. And yet the question that burned hotter than fear was why? Why were the humans silent? Why had they returned now after vanishing for so long? Were they waiting for something? Or were they already preparing for war? Rumors filled the void. Some said humans were searching for something they had lost. Others claimed they were counting their enemies before the storm. A few whispered the most dangerous idea of all, that the humans had never left, that they had always been here, hidden, shaping events from the shadows. On a lonely trading vessel near the rim, a young pilot named Arvin claimed he heard a voice when the human fleet passed overhead. It was not sound but something deeper, pressing into his mind. He swore the voice said, "We are not your enemies, unless you make us so." The traders laughed at him, but when Arvin spoke, his eyes carried a weight that silenced the room. Across the galaxy, the silence of humans became heavier than any war. Some begged for answers, some prayed for peace, and some, the proud warlords and emperors, began to prepare for battle. But the humans gave no sign. They were patient, watching, moving through the stars like hunters who had all the time in the universe. And in that silence, fear grew into terror. Because the galaxy realized a simple truth: legends do not return to stay hidden forever. Sooner or later, the shadows in the sky would strike, and when they did, no one would be ready. The first battle. The galaxy had lived in silence long enough. Shadows had passed through countless skies, and fear had turned into anger. Some rulers could no longer tolerate the quiet threat. They demanded action. They demanded proof that humans could bleed. The first to act was the Varkon hegemony, a proud empire of warlords who had never lost a battle in centuries. Their fleets stretched across dozens of systems armed with weapons powerful enough to shatter moons. To them, the humans were nothing more than ghosts hiding in machines. And ghosts, they believed, could be destroyed. High Warlord Carix gathered his greatest fleet, over 2,000 warships. Cruisers, dreadnoughts, carriers, all forged for domination. His voice thundered across the war channels. The galaxy trembles at shadows. I will show them the shadows can burn. The humans will fall like the rest. The fleet moved into the dead system where Admiral Threx had first reported the awakening. It was here, among the broken planets and silent rocks, that they would challenge the myth. For hours, their sensors scanned the void. Nothing. Empty space stretched before them, mocking their strength. Some commanders whispered doubt, but Warlord Carix roared, "They hide because they fear us." And then the stars went dark. From the silence, the human fleet appeared. First 10 ships, then hundreds, then thousands. Their black hulls spread across the system like a storm without end. The Varkan fleet, mighty as it was, suddenly seemed small, like sparks facing a tidal wave. Still, Carix stood tall. His voice was iron. Fire. The first strike came from the Varkon side. Thousands of beams cut through the void, blazing with destructive energy. Missiles swarmed like locusts, aiming for the closest human vessels. The darkness lit up with fire, and yet, not a single human ship fell. Their hulls shimmered with strange light, bending the attacks away. Missiles dissolved in mid-space as if swallowed by invisible walls. The alien crews screamed in disbelief. It cannot be. Nothing survives that strike. The human fleet did not answer with words. They answered with silence and fire. One ship, larger than a mountain, moved forward. Its weapons activated, glowing with cold blue light. A single beam cut through the void, slicing a Varkon dreadnought in half. There was no explosion. No warning. The ship simply broke apart, silent, dead. Then the others joined. The human fleet unleashed their weapons, and the void itself seemed to shatter. Their beams were precise, each shot tearing through Varkon armor as if it were paper. Their missiles moved like predators, turning and weaving until they struck their prey. Entire cruisers vanished in bursts of white fire. The Varkon fleet fought back with fury. They launched counterstrikes, swarms of fighters, waves of energy. But nothing reached the humans. Every attack broke like water against stone. Warlord Carix shouted for his men to hold the line. He ordered ramming maneuvers, desperate charges. One Varkon cruiser hurled itself directly at a human warship, its engines burning to the last. The collision lit the void with fire, but when the blaze cleared, the human ship was still standing, untouched. The Varkons, proud and unyielding, began to break. Their mighty fleet crumbled piece by piece, swallowed by silence and blue fire. In the command chamber, Karix finally realized the truth. His voice, once thunder, now shook like a dying ember. They are not legends. They are death. Moments later, his flagship vanished in a burst of light. The battle lasted less than an hour. 2,000 ships reduced to ashes. Entire generations of Varkon pride destroyed in silence. And the humans lost none. Not one ship. When the battle was done, the human fleet did not celebrate. They did not chase survivors. They did not send warnings or demands. They simply turned and vanished into the darkness once again, leaving behind nothing but wreckage and silence. The survivors, few as they were, carried the story back to the galaxy. Their words spread faster than light, and every empire listened. The message was clear. The humans had returned, and they could not be stopped. In the halls of power across the stars, rulers who once mocked the legends now trembled. The proud empires began to whisper in fear. Armies were raised, borders sealed, treaties signed in secret. But deep down, they knew none of it mattered. For if 2,000 warships could not stop the humans, who could? And yet, the humans remained silent. They did not claim the Varkan worlds. They did not demand tribute. They simply destroyed, then disappeared. Like hunters testing their strength. Like shadows reminding the galaxy of what they had always feared. The galaxy finally understood the truth whispered in myths. When humans return, they do not return to talk. They return to conquer. And still, somewhere in the darkness, a voice lingered in the minds of those who had seen them. This is only the beginning. Legends made real. The galaxy had witnessed battles before. Empires had risen. Empires had fallen. But nothing compared to what happened in the dead system where the Varkon fleet was destroyed. News of that defeat traveled across the stars like a scream that would not end. For the first time in centuries, the mighty were humbled. 2,000 ships had fallen without leaving even a scratch on their enemy. The Varkon warlords, once proud conquerors, now hid behind their walls, silent and broken. The galaxy had mocked the word human. Now no one dared speak it without fear. But fear was only the beginning. From the dark corners of the galaxy, new sightings came. Human fleets appeared above neutral colonies, their massive shadows swallowing the skies. They did not attack. They did not speak. They simply hovered in silence, watching. Some colonies reported voices in their minds, whispers like thunder in the distance. Others swore they saw human soldiers standing on the decks of their warships, gazing down with cold, unblinking eyes. And then, they would vanish again. The rulers argued endlessly. Some believed the humans wanted peace, a chance to be understood. Others were certain they were preparing for total war. The galaxy was divided, yet all shared one truth. They no longer ruled the stars alone. In the Zithan Empire, the Empress called her war council. Her voice, usually filled with power, shook, as she said, if they wished they could have ended us already. That they wait is no mercy. It is judgment. In the Dominion, Admiral Threx, the man who first saw the awakening, stood before the High Lords. His eyes were hollow, his voice like stone. We are insects in their sight. If they wish to crush us, they will. If they choose to ignore us, it is only because we are beneath them. The priests of the Koro Alliance declared the return of humans as prophecy fulfilled. The shadows walk again, they cried in the temples, and with them comes the end of pride. But the ordinary people of the galaxy felt something different. Beyond fear, beyond terror, there was awe. The humans were no longer just killers in stories. They were real, walking legends. Beings who had hidden in silence for ages, waiting, building, watching. One thing was clear. The galaxy would never be the same. For then came the moment that sealed their truth. Above the world of Helios Prime, a world of scholars and traders, the skies darkened once again. The people looked up, expecting a fleet. But what they saw stole the breath from their lungs. An armada. Not hundreds. Not thousands. Tens of thousands of human ships filled the void. Their engines glowed like suns. Their shadows swallowed the planet in darkness. The ground shook from the power that hung above. The scholars fell silent. The traders dropped their goods. Children clutched their parents, pointing at the sky with wide, fearful eyes. Never had so many ships been seen in one place, not even during the greatest wars of history. The humans revealed themselves not as survivors, not as wanderers, but as a force beyond imagination. And then, for the first time, they spoke. A voice filled the skies, carried not through machines, but directly into the minds of every being on the planet. It was deep, steady, and undeniable. We are the children of Earth. We were forgotten, but we did not forget. We were hunted, but we did not die. We were shadows, but now we return to stand in the light. The voice grew heavier, carrying the weight of centuries. You called us myths. You called us legends. But legends do not fade. Legends wait. Legends endure. The skies trembled with the roar of human engines. Entire mountains shook as if the world itself feared what had come. The voice gave its final words. Now you will remember us. And with that, the human fleet moved. Not to destroy. Not to conquer. At least not yet. But to show the galaxy that they were real. From that day, no one called them myths. No one doubted their existence. The galaxy that had once laughed at the name human now whispered it with trembling lips. The balance of power had shattered. Every empire, every council, every warlord knew it. The galaxy belonged to many. But above them all, one truth was written in fire and shadow. Humans had returned, and they were not leaving.